Commander ZFKA looked at the data screen and felt nothing but boredom. Another routine scan of the human homeworld. Another report that would say the same thing as the last 1,000 reports. The humans were still on their tiny blue planet. They were still weak. They were still not worth worrying about. He pressed a few buttons on his console. The long-range sensors swept across the Earth system. Everything looked normal. The third planet from the stars showed the usual signs of primitive life. Radio signals, heat signatures from their cities, a few small space stations orbiting their world. Nothing that would threaten the Great Galactic Council. ZFKA had been watching Earth for 20 years. His father had watched it before him. His grandfather, too. It was a family job that passed down through generations. Watch the humans. Make sure they stay where they belong. Report if anything changes. Nothing ever changed. The humans had discovered fire only a few thousand years ago. They had built their first flying machines just over a century ago. They had barely managed to put a few of their kind on their own moon. At this rate, it would take them thousands of years to become a real spacefaring race. By then, the Council would have decided what to do with them. ZFKA finished his scan and started to write his report. The same words he used every month. Human activity remains minimal. No signs of advanced technology. No threat to Council interests. Recommend continued monitoring with current resources. He sent the report and leaned back in his chair. Another boring day watching the most boring species in the galaxy. What ZFKA did not know was that 300 light-years away, deep inside what appeared to be a dead rock of a planet, millions of humans were working in the largest construction project their species had ever attempted. The planet was called Kepler 442b in the old star charts. The Council had surveyed it 200 years ago and marked it as uninhabitable waste. No atmosphere worth breathing. No water. No life. No reason for anyone to ever go there again. This was exactly what humanity had been hoping for. Sarah Chen walked through the massive corridor carved deep into the planet's core. The tunnel was so large that aircraft could fly through it. The walls were lined with metal that gleamed under the artificial lights. She could hear the sound of construction echoing from every direction. Hammering, welding, the hum of massive machines. She had been born here, like her parents before her. Her great-great-grandmother had been part of the first team to arrive on this world. Back then, it had taken 6 months to hollow out a space big enough for 1,000 people. Now, 3 centuries later, the entire planet was hollow, a shell of rock hiding the greatest secret in human history. Sarah stopped at an observation window and looked out into the central construction bay. The sight never failed to amaze her. The space was so vast that weather patterns formed inside it. Clouds drifted between the massive metal structures. Lightning flashed in the distance where the power systems were being tested. And there, in the center of it all, was a reason for everything. The engine. It was the size of a city. A fusion reactor so powerful it could move an entire planet. The same type of engine that were being built in dozens of other hollow worlds scattered across the galaxy. All hidden, all secret, all part of humanity's greatest plan. Impressive, isn't it? A voice said behind her. Sarah turned to see Dr. Marcus Webb approaching. He was the chief engineer for this section of the project, a man in his 70s who had spent his entire life working on humanity's secret fleet. It never gets old, Sarah replied. How much longer until we're ready? The engine will be online in 6 months, Webb said. The weapons systems are already installed. The navigation computers are running final tests. We're ahead of schedule. Sarah nodded. She knew that similar conversations were happening on every world in the fleet. Dozens of planets that looked dead and empty from the outside. Dozens of planets that were actually massive warships waiting for the signal to move. Any word from Earth? She asked. Webb's expression grew serious. The Council is getting restless. Intelligence reports suggest they are planning something big. They think we're getting too crowded on Earth. Too many humans. Too much radio noise. They are starting to see us as a problem that needs solving. Sarah felt a chill. This was what they had all been preparing for. The reason their ancestors had started this project 300 years ago. Humanity had learned early that the galaxy was not a friendly place. The strong survived. The weak were eliminated, and the Council saw humans as very weak indeed. But the Council was wrong. How long do we have? Sarah asked. Maybe a year, maybe less. But it doesn't matter. We're ready. The whole fleet is ready. When they come for Earth, they're going to get the surprise of their lives. Webb walked to another window that showed the outer construction bays. Thousands of smaller ships were docked there. Fighters, bombers, transport vessels. All of them built inside the planet where no outside sensors could detect them. You know what the best part is? Webb said with a smile. They've been watching us the whole time. Zeth Ka and his monitoring station. They think they know everything about humanity. They think we're just simple creatures playing with fire on our little world. He pointed to a display screen that showed the locations of all the Council monitoring posts. Red dots scattered around the galaxy, each one watching a human world that the Council thought was a normal colony. None of them realizing that every world they were watching was actually a disguised warship. They count our cities. They measure our energy output. They catalog our radio signals. And all the time, they're looking at the wrong thing. They are so busy watching our decoy operations that they never notice what's really happening. Sarah understood. For 3 centuries, humanity had been playing a game of misdirection on a galactic scale. Every piece of technology they showed the galaxy was deliberately primitive. Every space mission was designed to look clumsy and limited. Every colony world was made to appear barely self-sufficient. Meanwhile, the real human civilization was growing in secret, hidden inside dead planets, protected by technology that was centuries ahead of anything the Council possessed, preparing for the war that everyone knew was coming. The communication system crackled to life. A voice echoed through the construction bay. Attention all personnel. This is Admiral Harrison broadcasting from Oath Command. We have received confirmation that Council forces are mobilizing for a cleansing operation. All worlds are to complete final preparations immediately. The Sleeper Protocol is now active. Repeat, the Sleeper Protocol is now active. Sarah and Webb looked at each other. After 300 years of waiting, the moment had finally come. Across the galaxy, on dozens of worlds that the Council believed were dead rocks, millions of humans heard the same message. Engineers stopped their work to listen. Soldiers checked their weapons. Families gathered together knowing that everything was about to change. The galaxy thought it knew humanity. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. Admiral Voth Prime stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and felt satisfaction flow through his body. Today would be a good day. Today, the Council would finally solve the human problem. The cleansing fleet stretched out before him in perfect formation. 500 warships. The largest military force the Council had assembled in over a century. Enough firepower to turn a planet into dust. All of it aimed at one small blue world that had grown too crowded for its own good. Status report, Voth Prime commanded. His tactical officer, a young hegemony soldier named Kex-9, consulted his instruments. All ships report ready. Admiral, we are approaching the edge of the human system. Estimated arrival at the target planet in 6 hours. Excellent. And our intelligence reports. Unchanged, sir. The humans show no signs of advanced defense systems. No significant military installations detected beyond their orbital stations. Their largest warship appears to be approximately 200 meters in length. Primitive missile armaments only. Voth Prime nodded. This would be even easier than he had thought. The humans had no idea what was coming. His fleet had traveled here through hyperspace, covering the distance from Council space in just 3 days. The humans would have no time to prepare any kind of defense. So, Kex-9 said, looking puzzled at his screen, I'm getting some unusual reading from their moon. What kind of readings? Energy signatures that don't match our previous scans. And the gravitational field seems different somehow. Voth Prime walked over to examine the data himself. The human moon had always been a dead rock circling their planet. Nothing special about it. But the numbers on the screen were definitely wrong. Run a full-spectrum analysis, he ordered. I want to know what those primitives are doing up there. What Admiral Voth Prime did not know was that Luna, Earth's moon, had not been in orbit around Earth for over 50 years. The object his sensors were detecting was something else entirely. Something that had been waiting patiently for this exact moment. Deep inside what appeared to be the moon, Captain Elena Rodriguez stood in the command center of humanity's first planet ship, Sanctuary. Around her, thousands of technicians worked at control stations that stretched as far as the eye could see. The chamber was so large that it had its own weather system, with clouds forming near the ceiling. Admiral Voth Prime's fleet has entered sensor range, reported her communications officer. 500 ships, just as intelligence predicted. Elena smiled grimly. Right on schedule. How long until they reach optimal firing position? 17 minutes. Captain. Good. Signal all stations. Begin final power-up sequence. Drop the holographic camouflage on my mark. Elena had been born for this moment. Her entire family had served on Sanctuary for 4 generations. Her great-grandfather had helped design the massive fusion reactors that powered the ship. Her grandmother had supervised the installation of the main weapon arrays. Her mother had commanded the final construction phases. Now it was Elena's turn to make history. She walked to the central observation deck and looked up at the massive display screen that showed the space around Earth. The Hegemony fleet was approaching in their standard attack formation, confident, arrogant, completely unprepared for what was about to happen. All weapon systems report ready, announced a tactical officer, Commander Park. Primary cannons are charged to full power. Secondary batteries are online. Point defense grids are active. Elena nodded. Sanctuary was more than just a disguised moon. It was the most powerful warship ever built by any species in the galaxy. Its main cannons were the size of city blocks. Its armor was thicker than the deepest ocean trenches on Earth. Its shields could withstand the energy output of a small star. And the Hegemony had no idea it existed. Captain, Park continued, we're receiving similar ready signals from the other ships in the fleet. Elena's smile widened. The Hegemony thought they were attacking a single primitive world. They had no idea that dozens of planet ships were hidden throughout the galaxy, all waiting for the signal, all ready to reveal humanity's true power. Open a channel to Earth Command, Elena ordered. The main screen flickered and showed the face of Admiral Harrison, the supreme commander of all human forces. He was sitting in his office on Earth, looking remarkably calm for someone whose planet was about to be attacked by the largest alien fleet in recorded history. Captain Rodriguez, Harrison said, are you ready to make our debut? All systems green, Admiral. Sanctuary is ready to show the galaxy what humanity can really do. Excellent. You have permission to drop camouflage and engage at will. Show them what 300 years of preparation looks like. The transmission ended. Elena turned to her crew. Every face was focused. Every hand was steady. They had trained for this their entire lives. Their parents had trained for it. Their grandparents had trained for it. All stations. This is the captain, Elena announced over the ship-wide communication system. Today we stop pretending to be weak. Today we show the galaxy that humanity is not prey. Drop holographic camouflage in 3, 2, 1, mark. Across the space around Earth, what had appeared to be the moon suddenly began to change. The familiar gray surface started to shimmer and fade like a mirage. Massive sections of what had looked like crater-covered rock split open to reveal gleaming metal underneath. Gun ports that had been hidden for decades swung open. Sensor arrays that could track a single ship across a star system extended from concealed bays. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, alarms began screaming. Admiral! Kex-9 shouted over the noise. The moon, it's not a moon. Voth Prime stared at his main screen in disbelief. Where the human moon had been just moments before, there was now a massive structure unlike anything he had ever seen. It was spherical, like a moon, but covered in weapons that made his flagship's armaments look like toys. What is that thing? He whispered. His question was answered a few seconds later when Sanctuary fired its first shot. The main cannon, a weapon that stretched from one side of the ship to the other, charged with enough energy to power a small civilization. When it fired, the beam was visible to the naked eye across the entire solar system. It cut through space like a sword made of pure light. The beam struck the Eternal Dominion dead center. Voth Prime had just enough time to understand that everything he thought he knew about humanity had been wrong. Then his ship, a kilometer-long dreadnought that had conquered 12 worlds, simply ceased to exist. The other ships in the Hegemony fleet watched in horror as their flagship was vaporized in a single shot. No explosion. No debris. One moment it was there. The next moment there was only empty space and a fading glow. All ships. Vorth Prime Second in Command screamed over the fleet communication system, "Emergency retreat! Emergency retreat!" But it was too late for retreating. As the hegemony ships tried to turn away from Oath, more sections of Sanctuary opened fire. Weapons that had been hidden for decades revealed themselves. Missile bays launched swarms of projectiles that moved faster than anything the aliens had ever seen. Energy beams crisscrossed space like a deadly light show. In less than 10 minutes, the largest military fleet in Council history was reduced to burning wreckage. Elena watched the destruction from her command center and felt no satisfaction, only grim determination. This was just the beginning. The galaxy had tried to destroy humanity. Now humanity would show them the price of that mistake. Signal Earth Command, she ordered. Phase 1 is complete. The galaxy now knows we exist. Initiate Phase 2. Across the galaxy, on dozens of worlds that the Council had catalogued as dead rocks, the same message was received. Planets that had been silent for centuries suddenly came alive with activity. Engines the size of continents began to power up. Weapons that could crack moons prepared for war. The hegemony had wanted to eliminate humanity. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. The age of human deception was over. The age of human dominance was about to begin. High Chancellor Vexmore of the Galactic Council sat in his floating chair and stared at the emergency reports flooding his communication center. His 3 eyes blinked rapidly as he tried to process what he was reading. The numbers made no sense. The tactical analysis made no sense. Nothing made sense anymore. The cleansing fleet was gone. All 500 ships. Destroyed in less than 10 minutes by what appeared to be a single human weapon disguised as their moon. The few escape pods that had managed to transmit data before being destroyed told an impossible story. The humans had built a warship the size of a planet. They had hidden it in plain sight for decades. They had weapons that could vaporize a dreadnought with one shot. This cannot be correct. Vexmore said to his aide, a nervous young council member named Tech7. Run the analysis again. Check for transmission errors. Check for equipment malfunctions. Check for anything that would explain how a primitive species could destroy our most powerful fleet. Tech7's hand shook as he worked his controls. I have run the analysis 17 times. High Chancellor, the results are consistent. The human weapon output exceeded our most optimistic estimates by a factor of 1,000. The energy signature suggests fusion technology far beyond anything we have seen before. Vexmore felt something he had not experienced in over 200 years of life. Fear. Real, cold fear that started in his stomach and spread through his entire body. If the humans could build one weapon like this, how many more did they have? How long had they been planning this? How much did they really know about Council operations? His questions were answered sooner than he expected. The main communication array began broadcasting an incoming signal, not from anywhere in Council space, not from any known civilization. The signal was coming from a dead system on the Outer Rim, a system that contained nothing but worthless rocks that no one had bothered to visit in over a century. Put it on the main screen, Vexmore ordered. The holographic display activated and showed the face of a human, a middle-aged woman with short gray hair and calm, intelligent eyes. She was wearing what appeared to be a military uniform of some kind. Greetings, High Chancellor Vexmore, the woman said in perfect Council standard language. My name is Admiral Sarah Harrison, Supreme Commander of the Human Colonial Defense Force. I believe we need to talk. Vexmore's third eye widened in shock. The humans knew his name. They knew his rank. They were broadcasting from a dead system. And this Admiral Harrison was speaking as if she represented not just Earth, but multiple human colonies. Admiral Harrison, Vexmore replied, trying to keep his voice steady. I was not aware that humanity had established any colonies outside your home system. Admiral Harrison smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. High Chancellor, there are many things about humanity that your council has not been aware of. That is exactly what I wanted to discuss with you. The transmission shifted to show a wider view. Admiral Harrison was standing in what appeared to be a command center, but the scale was all wrong. The room stretched away in all directions, disappearing into the distance. Thousands of technicians worked at control stations. The ceiling was so high that it vanished in shadow. Where are you? Vexmore asked. I am currently aboard the planet ship New Horizon, located in what your star charts list as the Kepler 442 system. You surveyed this system 200 years ago and marked it as uninhabitable. We have been using it as a construction facility ever since. Vexmore felt his breathing stop. The Kepler system. He remembered that survey. A dead world with no atmosphere and no resources worth harvesting. The Council had written it off completely. Construction facility for what? He asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer. For this, Admiral Harrison said. The view changed again. This time it showed space outside the ship. What Vexmore so made his worst fears seem small and insignificant. Floating in the darkness was what appeared to be a planet, but it was moving. Massive engines, each one the size of a continent, glowed with fusion fire. The surface was covered with structures that could only be weapons, gun ports that looked like valleys, missile silos that looked like mountain ranges. New Horizon is just one of 43 planet ships currently operational. Admiral Harrison continued. We have been building them for 3 centuries. Every world your council marked as dead or worthless became a construction site. Every system you ignored became a human stronghold. 43. Vexmore's mind struggled to comprehend the number. 43 weapons like the one that had destroyed the cleansing fleet. 43 planets converted into warships. 43 hidden bases that the Council had never detected. How? Was all he managed to say. Very carefully, High Chancellor. Your monitoring stations have been watching our decoy operation for 200 years. Every piece of technology we showed you was deliberately primitive. Every space mission was designed to look clumsy. Every colony was made to appear barely functional. Meanwhile, our real civilization was growing in secret. The view shifted again to show star charts. Dozens of systems were highlighted in blue. Systems that the Council databases listed as empty or unimportant. All of them, according to the display, containing human planet ships. The Council has been playing a game, Admiral Harrison said, watching primitive species, deciding which ones to eliminate when they become inconvenient. But humanity has been playing a different game. We have been preparing for the day when you would come for us. Vexmore realized that everything he thought he knew about galactic politics had just changed. The humans were not a primitive species waiting to be eliminated. They were a hidden empire that had been growing under the Council's nose for centuries. What do you want? He asked. I want to show you something else, Admiral Harrison replied. The transmission now showed a tactical display of the galaxy. Hundreds of systems were marked with different colored symbols. Blue for human planet ships, red for Council military bases, green for major trade routes, yellow for communication relay stations. Your cleansing fleet was not the only Council operation launched today, Admiral Harrison said. We have been monitoring your communications for decades. We know about the 3 other fleets you sent to eliminate problematic species in the Outer Rim. Vexmore felt his blood turn cold. Those were classified operations, top-secret missions that only the highest levels of the Council knew about. Those fleets no longer exist, Admiral Harrison continued. They encountered our planet ships approximately 1 hour ago. Just like your fleet at Earth, they have been completely destroyed. The tactical display updated to show the locations of the destroyed fleets, for different systems, for separate battles, all resulting in total Council losses. Impossible, Vexmore whispered. You could not have known our battle plans. You could not have positioned forces to intercept every fleet. High Chancellor, we have been inside your communication network for over 50 years. We know every plan you make before your own admirals do. We have ships positioned in every system that matters. When you decided to eliminate humanity, you walked into a trap that we have been preparing for longer than most of your soldiers have been alive. Admiral Harrison's image moved closer to the camera. Her expression was serious but not hostile. Now, High Chancellor, I have a proposal for you. Your council can continue trying to eliminate species you consider inferior, but understand that humanity will be watching, and humanity will respond. Or you can accept that the balance of power in this galaxy has changed. You can negotiate with us as equals instead of trying to exterminate us as pests. Vexmore sat in silence for several minutes. Everything he had believed about the galaxy was wrong. Every assumption the Council had made about humanity was false. The species they had thought of as primitive insects had been playing a game far more sophisticated than anything the Council had imagined. "What are your terms?" he finally asked. Admiral Harrison smiled again. This time it looked more genuine. "I am transmitting a formal diplomatic proposal to your council chambers now," she said. "I suggest you read it carefully. And High Chancellor, you might want to update your star charts. Humanity controls a lot more territory than your records indicate." The transmission ended, leaving Vexmore alone with the terrible knowledge that the galaxy would never be the same again. Fleet Admiral Korthrex of the Hegemony Empire received the emergency orders while his battle group was refueling at the fortress world of Drachmae Prime. The message was simple and direct. All available forces were to retreat immediately to the core worlds. The humans had revealed themselves to be far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Korthrex read the orders 3 times before he could believe them. According to the reports, the primitive from Earth had destroyed 4 separate council fleets using weapons of impossible power. They had planet-sized warships. They had been hiding in dead systems for centuries. They were now hunting down every military force that had participated in elimination operations. "Impossible," he muttered to his tactical officer, Commander Yeth Prime. "These reports must be exaggerated. No species could hide technology like this for so long." Yeth Prime looked uncomfortable. "So, the reports are coming from 17 different sources. All of them describe the same thing. Planets that move like ships. Weapons that can destroy dreadnoughts with single shots. The humans appear to have built an entire hidden fleet." Korthrex stood up and walked to the main display screen that showed his battle group. 12 heavy cruisers, 4 battleships, 2 carrier vessels with full fighter squadrons. It was enough firepower to conquer most star systems. Surely it was enough to handle whatever primitive weapons the humans had managed to build. "Set course for the core worlds," he ordered reluctantly, "but keep all sensors active. If we encounter any human forces, we will show them what real military power looks like." What Admiral Korthrex did not know was that humanity had been tracking his battle group for over 6 months. The planet ship Iron will have been waiting in the Drachmore system for 2 weeks, hidden behind the system's gas giant, completely invisible to hegemony sensors. Captain James Morrison stood in the command center of Ironwheel and watched the hegemony ships begin their retreat. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. No one spoke unless necessary. Everyone understood what was about to happen. "Tactical report," Morrison requested. "Hegemony Battle Group consists of 18 vessels," reported his weapons officer, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park. "Standard formation. They are accelerating toward the hyperspace jump point. Estimated time to jump, 14 minutes. Morrison nodded. 14 minutes was more than enough time. Ironwheel was not just a planet ship. It was a mobile fortress that contained an entire civilization. Cities with millions of inhabitants. Factories that could build fleets of smaller ships. And weapons that made the hegemony's best technology look like ancient history. "Begin approach," Morrison ordered. "Drop cloak when we reach optimal firing position." The planet ship began to move. Despite its enormous size, Ironwheel could accelerate faster than most conventional starships. Its fusion engines were so powerful they could be seen from neighboring star systems. But right now, those engines were running in stealth mode, producing no detectable signatures. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Korthrex was reviewing the retreat route when his sensor operator suddenly went pale. "Admiral," the operator said in a shaking voice, "I am detecting a massive gravity distortion approaching our position." "What kind of distortion?" "So, it appears to be a planet, but it is moving at high speed and is not following any natural orbital pattern." Korthrex rushed to the sensor station and looked at the readings himself. The numbers made no sense. The computer was showing an object with the mass of a small planet, but it was accelerating like a starship. It was also radiating energy signatures that his equipment could not identify. "Where did it come from?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. It simply appeared on our sensors 30 seconds ago. But based on its current trajectory, it was hidden behind the gas giant." Korthrex felt cold fear creeping up his spine. A planet that could hide. A planet that could move like a ship. The reports about human technology were true. "All ships," he shouted into his communication system. Emergency jump. Emergency jump. Execute hyperspace transition immediately. But it was too late. Ironwool dropped its cloaking system and revealed itself to the Hegemony fleet. The planet ship was a sphere of metal and stone 3 times larger than Earth's moon. Its surface was covered with cities that glowed like stars, weapon installations that looked like mountain ranges, docking bays that could hold fleets of smaller ships. The sight was so overwhelming that several Hegemony officers simply stared in shock, unable to process what they were seeing. Admiral Korthrex was not one of them. He immediately understood that his battle group stood no chance against whatever this thing was. But he was a military officer. He had sworn an oath to fight for the Empire, even if it meant certain death. All ships, attack formation, he ordered. Concentrate fire on the largest weapon installations. If we are going to die, we will die fighting. The Hegemony ships turned toward Ironwool and began firing every weapon they had. Missiles streaked through space. Energy beams lanced out from their heavy cannons. Fighter squadrons launched from the carrier vessels and dove toward the planet ship like angry insects. For a few moments, the space around Ironwool was filled with explosions and weapon fire. It looked like a real battle was taking place. Then the planet ship began to respond. The first thing that happened was that all the Hegemony missiles simply disappeared. Point defense systems that covered the entire surface of Ironwool tracked and destroyed every incoming projectile before it could get within 1,000 kilometers of the ship. The defensive fire was so dense that it looked like a solid wall of light. The second thing that happened was that the fighter squadrons discovered they could not maneuver. Some kind of gravity field was pulling their ships toward the planet ship. No matter how hard they fired their engines, they could not break free. One by one, the fighters were drawn into docking bays that opened like giant mouths to swallow them. The third thing that happened was that Ironwool began to return fire. The planet ship's main weapons were built into artificial mountain ranges that covered half its surface. When they fired, the energy beams were so bright they could be seen from the next star system. Each shot carried more destructive power than entire Hegemony fleets possessed. Admiral Korthrex watched his flagship shield collapse under the first hit. The second hit cut his ship in half. The third hit vaporized what was left. He had just enough time to realize that humanity had been holding back during their previous battles. The destruction of the cleansing fleet had been a demonstration, not a real fight. This was what happened when humans decided to show their true strength. The entire battle lasted less than 3 minutes. When it was over, 18 Hegemony warships had been reduced to expanding clouds of glowing debris. Not a single human had been killed. Not a single system on Ironwool had been damaged. Captain Morrison watched the destruction from his command center and felt no satisfaction. This was not a victory. It was pest control. The Hegemony forces had been so outmatched that calling it a battle would be insulting to both sides. Signal Earth Command, he ordered. Battle Group 7 has been eliminated. No survivors. Ironwool is proceeding to the next target. Around the galaxy, similar messages were being sent from dozens of other planet ships. The Hegemony Empire had over 200 military bases scattered across 50 star systems. Humanity was systematically visiting each one and demonstrating the futility of resistance. But this was not random destruction. This was psychological warfare on a galactic scale. Every battle was being broadcast on open frequencies so that other species could see what happened to those who threatened humanity. Every engagement was designed to show that human technology was centuries ahead of anything else in the galaxy. The message was simple and clear. Humanity was no longer hiding. They were no longer pretending to be weak. And they were no longer interested in being left alone. The galaxy had tried to eliminate them. Now they were going to reshape the galaxy according to their own vision. Fleet Admiral Korthrex had been wrong about one thing. The humans were not using primitive weapons. They were using weapons so advanced that the rest of the galaxy might as well have been fighting with sticks and stones. The age of council dominance was ending. The age of human supremacy had begun. High Chancellor Vexmore stood in the great assembly hall of the Galactic Council and looked out at the faces of representatives from across the galaxy. Never before had he seen such fear in the eyes of so many powerful beings. Species that had ruled star systems for thousands of years now sat quietly in their chairs, waiting to hear what humanity wanted from them. It had been 6 months since the humans revealed their true power. 6 months since their planet ships had systematically destroyed every military force that opposed them. 6 months since the galaxy learned that the species they had dismissed as primitive had been the most advanced civilization in known space for centuries. The numbers were staggering. In those 6 months, humanity had destroyed over 3,000 Council warships without losing a single planet ship. They had forced a surrender of 4 to 7 military bases. They had blockaded 12 major trade routes. And they had done it all while broadcasting every engagement on open frequencies so the entire galaxy could watch. The message had been received. Humanity was now the dominant military power in the galaxy, and today they were coming to collect what they were owed. The main doors of the assembly hall opened with a deep rumbling sound. Admiral Sarah Harrison walked in, followed by a small group of human diplomats. She moved with quiet confidence, showing no sign of being impressed by the grandeur of the council chambers. Behind her walked representatives from dozens of human colony worlds that the council had never known existed. Admiral Harrison approached the central speaking platform and looked up at the assembled delegates. When she spoke, her voice carried clearly to every corner of the vast hall. "Honored delegates," she began, "I come before you today not as a conqueror, but as a representative of a species that wants to build a better future for everyone in this galaxy." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Many delegates had expected demands for surrender or threats of destruction. Instead, Admiral Harrison was talking about cooperation. "For 3 centuries, humanity has watched this council operate," she continued. "We have seen how you decide which species live and which species die. We have observed your elimination campaigns against civilizations you consider inconvenient. We have monitored your debates about which worlds desire protection and which worlds can be sacrificed for political convenience." The murmurs stopped. Every delegate knew exactly what she was talking about. The Council's history was filled with decisions to eliminate or relocate species that stood in the way of more powerful civilizations. "Humanity rejects this system," Admiral Harrison said firmly. "We reject the idea that might makes right. We reject the notion that advanced species have the authority to eliminate primitive ones. And we reject any government that makes such decisions." High Chancellor Vexmore stood up from his floating throne. "Admiral Harrison, what exactly are you proposing?" "I am proposing a new set of rules for this galaxy," she replied. "Rules that every species will follow, regardless of their technology level or military power." She gestured to one of her diplomats, who activated a holographic display in the center of the hall. The display showed a detailed document with hundreds of pages of text. "The Human Colonial Charter," Admiral Harrison announced. "A set of principles that will govern all interactions between spacefaring civilizations. No species may eliminate another species for any reason. No species may claim territory that is already inhabited. No species may interfere with the natural development of primitive civilizations. And every species has a right to exist and grow without fear of extermination." The assembly hall erupted in angry voices. Delegates from the major powers shouted protests. Several representatives stood up and began speaking at the same time. The hegemony ambassador, a large reptilian creature named Zorth-Ka, slammed his fist on his desk. "This is unacceptable." Zorth-Ka roared. "You cannot simply impose your values on the entire galaxy. The strong have always ruled the weak. This is a natural order." Admiral Harrison waited for the noise to die down before responding. When she spoke, her voice was calm but carried an undertone of absolute authority. "Ambassador Zorth-Ka, your empire controlled over 200 star systems last year. How many do you control today?" Zorth-Ka's anger faltered. Everyone in the hall knew the answer. The hegemony empire had been reduced to less than 50 systems after humanity's systematic destruction of their military forces. "The natural order has changed," Admiral Harrison continued. "Humanity is now the strongest military power in this galaxy. We could eliminate every government represented in this room and rule through force, just as you have done for millennia. But we choose not to. Instead, we offer you a chance to build something better." She walked closer to the delegates, making eye contact with several of them. "The Charter is not a suggestion. It is the law that will govern this galaxy from now on. Every species that wishes to participate in interstellar trade, communication, or travel will follow these rules. Those who refuse will find themselves isolated from the rest of galactic civilization." High Chancellor Vexmore floated down from his throne and approached Admiral Harrison. And if we agree to these terms, what assurance do we have that humanity will not simply become the new oppressor? Admiral Harrison smiled. Because we are not interested in ruling over other species, High Chancellor. We are interested in making sure that no species ever again faces a choice between submission and extinction. She pointed to the holographic display, which now showed a new organizational chart. Under the charter, the Galactic Council will be reorganized. Every spacefaring species will have equal representation, regardless of their military strength or technological advancement. Decisions will be made by majority vote, with special protections for minority rights. And most importantly, humanity will have no more power in this system than any other single species. This caused another wave of surprised murmurs. The delegates had expected humanity to demand control of the Council. However, Admiral Harrison continued, and her voice became harder. Humanity will serve as the enforcement arm of this new system. Our planet ships will patrol the galaxy to ensure that the Charter is followed. Any species that attempts to eliminate another, any government that tries to return to the old ways of conquest and extermination, will face the full power of the human colonial defense force. She paused to let this sink in. Think of us as the galaxy's police force. We have no interest in ruling you, but we will stop you from ruling others through violence. The assembly hall fell silent as the delegates considered this proposal. It was unlike anything they had expected. Humanity was offering to share power while keeping the military strength to enforce the new rules. Ambassador Tech 7 of the Outer Rim Territories was the first to speak. Admiral Harrison, how do we know you will keep your word? How do we know that humanity will not eventually use its military advantage to impose its will on the rest of us? Admiral Harrison nodded. A fair question, Ambassador. The answer is simple. We have spent 300 years proving that we keep our promises. Every human colony world that appears on your updated star charts has been operating peacefully for decades or centuries. We could have revealed ourselves and conquered the galaxy at any time in the past 50 years. Instead, we chose to remain hidden until you forced our hand. She gestured to her diplomatic team. These representatives come from 4 to 7 different human worlds. Some have been independent for over 2 centuries. Yet they all agreed to work together when faced with the threat of council elimination campaigns. Humanity's strength comes not from conquest, but from cooperation. High Chancellor Vexmore looked around the assembly hall at his fellow delegates. He could see the calculation in their eyes. The old system was broken. The Council's military forces had proven inadequate against human technology, and the humans were offering a path forward that did not require total surrender. Admiral Harrison, he said finally, the Council will need time to review your charter and discuss these proposals among ourselves. Of course, Admiral Harrison replied. You have exactly 30 standard days to make your decision. After that time, humanity will begin implementing the charter with or without your formal agreement. Species that choose to follow the new rules will be welcomed as partners. Those that do not will find themselves excluded from galactic civilization. She turned and began walking toward the exit, then stopped and looked back at the assembly. Oh, and High Chancellor, you might want to begin updating your military planning databases. Our planet ships are not the only surprise humanity has been preparing. We have been busy building a lot more than just weapons. Admiral Harrison left the assembly hall, followed by her diplomatic team. Behind her, the delegates sat in stunned silence, each of them trying to understand how completely their world had changed. The galaxy had a new sheriff, and for the first time in recorded history, that sheriff was more interested in justice than conquest.